My name's Will Petterson. I am, I guess, as of a few moments ago, the VP of something. I don't remember what my boss said. So I'm the VP of something that starts with customer. Some background. So I want to make this very informal. There's just a few of us. You guys have questions, like let's just talk about stuff. My goal here is to try to get you thinking about our tool in a different way than I think a lot of our customers do. There's a couple entry points. No, I'm good, thank you. There's a couple entry points into our community, right? Which we'll talk about. And my goal is to try to get us to stop, really to stop thinking about solutions as big applications and start thinking about small, bespoke, bite-sized wins. And how we can do, if we do both, we can meet in the middle and really establish a lot of value for our stakeholders. This is mostly thinking on my part. I've been doing a lot of thinking, categorization, trying to bracket, identify, sort of create conceptual categories in terms of how to think about these things, divvying up our customers into groups, and just to create a frame of reference for us to think about some of these problems. This is filling the automation pipeline, how to identify what to automate next. It's a fancy title for something that's more straightforward, I think, than, hey, how you guys doing? Come on in. It is probably an overly fancy title for the things that we're going to talk about. So who am I? I'm Will Petterson. I've been with Decisions for nearly 8 years. I'm like 6th on the hiring chart or something. I've been here for a long time. I'm a product person. I came up at a time where we didn't have different like service support QA functions. We all did all the work. We worked in a dentist office together. So I've touched a lot of different things in my time. I was in that sort of amorphous group of initial Decisionites. And then I was given control of the support team with no support members. Hey, come on in, guys. Sorry about that. No worries. We used Decisions for our ticketing. We used to share support. We created some trickery where I could dole out certain amounts of tickets, different team members per day. So I was able to steal a ticket a day per the services team at that time. Slowly but surely, a couple years ago, I got an actual team. So over the last 3 or 4 years, I've built up a support team. We have a support organization that is worldwide now. We have team members in India, the UK, primarily in the States, and we have 2 offices in India, and we're building out. You saw in Bob's presentation, our Global Operations Center in Hyderabad. We'll be building out a lot of capacity over there, and retaining our East Coast support footprint. So we've got a lot of great support for you guys. About a year ago, I took over our customer success operation as well, and I've stood over top of those 2 departments. I didn't know anything about customer success when I started. I still don't know anything about customer success now that I've been doing it. I think customer success is probably about relationship building, but I think about it more as creating tight feedback loops so you guys can get the help that you need, and not just rely on a frontline support rep to be the one who shepherds a very important thing for you into the appropriate, gets it into a release. So for me, customer success is really a lot about support. That's who I am. And again, for everyone that's come in, there's only a couple of us here, so you guys have questions. I want this to be informal and very, please feel free to raise a hand and we can have a conversation about a particular thing. So there's a tongue-in-cheek quote here that when I started workshopping this idea, when I took over Success, I realized, and I'll show you some data to back this up, was that all of the consultative work that we do to help you identify what to use Decisions for stops as soon as you sign your contract. You do a lot of work in the sales process to figure out what and how to do something, and then we would just send you off and you would go and you would be as successful or not successful as you would be based on your team, your problem, your business, and all those things. And so what we found is a lot of customers build the thing that they bought us for, and then they stop. They maintain that thing, but they don't ever expand. They don't ever treat us like a true general purpose platform in the way that we think we are. And so I when I took over customer success, I sort of started this journey in trying to understand why that is, like why customers stop. Like we have a program that has no transactional cost to it. You can put as much work on it as you want, and it costs you really nothing more except maybe additional hardware specifications, or if you need to move from a single to a cluster, there's some additional sort of overhead there. But there's not a straight line between volume and cost in our current pricing model. So as owners of our application, it behooves you to invest heavily in the tool. And I would assume, especially in a world where, of course, everything is subscription now, and everything is transaction-based pricing. So the more you do, the more you pay. Or even if it's a reduced rate, still you're paying sort of per unit cost of some sort, and that unit is a transaction. And that our pricing model is not that. And so I couldn't figure out why are we not doing more. And I think, and I'll lay out some of my thinking here and talk about some of the possibilities. But one of the things is a lot of you all have come to us for very hard problems. And those hard problems require that we actually build effectively an entire application and decisions. And I'll break down my thinking here between applications and some other categories. But these are big, actual, classic software development projects. There's project management, there's separate QA teams, there's developers, there's stakeholders, there is or at least should be like actual quality assurance testing going on, like all the hallmarks of normal software development lifecycle. Just because you have a tool like Decisions doesn't mean that traditional software development best practices go away. You heard him mention that no code doesn't mean no training. And so one of the first thoughts I had is I was looking at some of our data, and I look at our data and it says our average time to go live is like 8 months, right? For contract start to initial go live. And I was like, wow, that's an eternity. And I'm like, how can that be? I know that if I want to do something, I can build it in a few hours, and there's this gap. And so like, what's the gap coming from? And one of them is because a lot of your initial things you're building are significantly complicated, or were a part of a bigger project. Just to give you some examples, Arizona Department of Transportation was called out, and they were modernizing their entire DMV. They had like a whole mainframe-based architecture, and they're moving to a web application GUI front end, and then we are the fee calculation engine for every DMV request through the customer-based portal or through the DMV. Sort of UI itself, or whoever the DMV servicers or whatever, and we handle hundreds of thousands of fee result request calculations for them per day, and but it took years for them. We were just a part of that, so we were part of this digital transformation. Other ones is that just the size of the thing that you're trying to fix is big, or you actually just need to move away from a legacy platform, and that is big enough to create an actual application. One of my concerns, and I think the singular goal I have for this topic, is to convince you that not every new business problem requires you to build a new application. And in fact, thinking that way is going to make the value proposition of our tool less apparent. And so that's where this quote comes from. This is actually from, for those of us here, this is a quote from Nico from a while back. When Nico and I started brainstorming this idea together. Every solution does not require a CRM, right? I need to track lead deals better. We qualify our leads in a way Salesforce can't handle. I don't throw Salesforce out and rebuild Salesforce, right? I figure out how to pipe Salesforce lead data into Decisions and get the results back, right? Which you'll hear this term called like augmented business process, which is a title that or category or a concept that I've come up with. I know that there's applications, a lot of them have like really rudimentary notification systems. Lots of, notification fatigue is real, right? Lots of dumb notifications get sent out. and I want to improve notification quality, and I want to make sure that I can have like second, third order notification behaviors. I don't rebuild HubSpot or build my own billing system to get that behavior I want. And so one of the things I think is if we start with the hard problem and we only see decisions as the huge problem solver, that we get stuck in this place where everything feels like I've got to put a whole project team together, and I've got to get executive stakeholder buy-in, and I've got to get capital expense and all these pieces for these big solutions. I've got to provision more server licenses, all these things. Lots of our really complicated solutions require that type of thinking, but there's a whole subset, like a ground-up type of thinking, that doesn't require that. So here's a question I'd like to, if I could do, but like a raise of hands, like who has already or is currently working to get back into the office since COVID started, like, or who? Everyone from Decisions has to raise their hand. Like, did you guys use we actually started going back to the office prior to, I guess, like vaccines being rolled out, and so we did two things. Is we did one thing, which was like a temperature check type process, right? Has anyone done, as a function of getting back into the office, had to do some sort of temperature check type behavior at their buildings? And for those of you that use Decisions, did anyone consider using Decisions to solve that very specific problem? Was Decisions considered by IT, but by your business or by the business as a whole, a solution to that problem, right? And I would wager, because we only had 2 to 4 customers ask us about could Decisions do this or how could Decisions can do this, that most of us didn't think that Decisions can fit that need. It's a very simple process. We built a very simple workflow where you would scan a QR code, it would open up a Decisions form, pre-populate your email, and then you would, on the first time, you would submit your, like, I haven't been exposed criteria, and then every day you would log your temperature. And HR now had a dashboard where their temperature was logged, and they could validate and see who was in the office that day, and for like all of the trace contact pieces. And so to me, this is an example of us as people who are using Decisions to solve problems, thinking too big, right? Like there's a company we do business with called Blue Ridge Energy. They're an energy co-op in North Carolina, and they have built an incredible amount of stuff. You heard Gordon mention their name earlier in his part of the presentation, or the keynote. And they always ask, can Decisions do this first, right? They've built just tons of small things, like apparel requisition forms and lots of really neat things. But it doesn't cost Blue Ridge $1 more besides the developer's time to build these small new things, right? Because it doesn't cost any more to run them.
One question.
Please.
So when we first purchased Decision, we kind of went all in, and we were thinking everything we can convert over.
Yeah.
We got the reins pulled on us a little bit because our leadership was worried about having one single point of failure for many processes.
Sure.
What's your answer on that?
Yeah, there's nothing, I mean, so let's say that you can't, nothing I'm saying implies that you can run your entire business on a single Decisions instance. But you probably are talking about having multiple decision servers with separate backends in different zones and some more complicated architectures there. But the question for me is, every time I build a new thing, or you build a new thing, like you learn a bit more, you get a little bit faster. And so can we share that knowledge? And even though we might host it differently, so we've got lots of different redundant failure points. Like the simplest way is like we can run many of us, I know, many of you do have like high availability clusters here, right? But maybe that's not enough. A new business unit's gonna come online. They've got a business critical application, and you've only been doing generic back office pieces, right? A lot of times the customers that just do a generic back-end processes run a single server. But when we talk about business critical, and we'll see some of this application thinking, 8-hour-a-day users, now we need high uptime, and we need to have high availability. And then we can get even more sophisticated from there in terms of having servers in different zones, different regions, depending on what our hosting provider is. So it's really, that's a question about how you host or the cost to host, but not really about how you solve problems with Decisions. Does that answer your question?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. And so here's the challenge. How can I convince you to expand the scope of the type of things decisions can help you address? So here's some data that I have, right? So right now, what you see on the pie chart is this is our distribution of use cases across the customers. Now, many of you that are customers have CS reps, and those people have been bothering you incessantly, I'm sure, at my behest to understand more about what you're doing. I'm like, that's not enough, Neil. Go get more information, right? And so he's like, why is Neil asking me about this again? So like my standards for the level of detail I need have changed. And so we created this concept of a use case where it's like a unit of business value, right? And there's some qualities that make it more or less clear from one use case versus the other. Some of our applications are big enough that we might call them one, but they have many inside of them. But either way, what you can see is a strong, overwhelming case that many of our customers stop at the first thing. What you see here, we can see their average use case count across all customers, as well as what our currently known use case count is. This is live data. This is very much something that we are after, and we are both getting more data about as well as trying to encourage more. And so we got a lot of work to do here, and the challenge is how do we work better together to do this, since it costs you net $0 to add another piece of business work into decisions. Until, of course, you trip over into some place where you're doing a ton of work and you need to offload some stuff onto separate servers. So how do we get to where we're at right now? There's three main entry points as I see it into our ecosystem. You come to us as a business rules engine, you're looking for generic back office automation, or you just need an actual application built. Like you've got a need for a giant bespoke business application, and you need that need fulfilled. Business rules engine is headless. You need logic. You need probably service orchestration. We would include in this category. And you're never intending to use our UI for anything, at least from your initial build. We are a consumer and provider of services to some other application. So, we've got some customers of ours who are using decisions to replace some IBM ODM instances, and we're totally headless there, right? But the interesting thing is they're training their design team, who's working in parallel with our PS team, to build these things in decisions. And so what do we do once that has stopped? When that project is done, and those people now have learned decisions really well, how do we leverage that somewhere else? And then I think our standard use case here, not standard, but the one historically that we've gotten a lot of is just back office automation. And so what I want to talk about here is trying to move the people in red and blue to also do the orange, and how to think about that. So how do we move someone who starts with a headless rules engine use case into thinking about decisions as a back office automator? Or how do we start with someone who's built a big bespoke application decisions to move into doing back office automation? And then that requires us to think about these things. I think we need to create some sort of terms to have this discussion. Now these are my terms. These aren't even like corporate approved, whatever that means. Like we started to use these internally, but this is just my thinking right now. And there's three levels. If you can't tell, I love alliteration, so that's why they like that. So you've got here you've got short to your y-axis is short to long development time. Your x-axis is complexity. You've got automations in the bottom left-hand corner. These are very small things built in decisions. They usually take a few weeks to build at most, but they don't. The unit of value or the value for each one is small. Like it's the sum total of all of them that is meaningful, but each one isn't going to win you whatever decisions are digital transformation associate of the year awards. Then in the middle is, to me, I think the most interesting slice here, which is automated business processes. And on the top right-hand corner, we have applications. So you've got the big bespoke builds here. You've got leveraging and orchestrating existing systems, and you've got little bite-sized wins here on the bottom left-hand side. So a couple examples of each. Automations. There is a customer of ours in insurance in Australia, Solutions Underwriting, and they've been automating their underwriting business. There's 4 or 5 different types of insurance products that they offer, and they've been automating. They had a manual insurance process. They moved each one. They've been automating them one by one, right? That's their main reason they bought Decisions, was to automate the underwriting engine. But one of the things they realized while they're doing work is Sarah, Solutions Underwriting, she just learned from conversation and having learned what Decisions can do, that their customer service people, every month, they got an Excel file. That Excel file had names of people who were coming up to renew. That they would pull this Excel file up as a team. They would divvy it out. They would then go take the information from the Excel, open up a PDF template, copy the information in the PDF template, look at the email address, and send that to the customer. Now, this is not their main use case. This isn't the reason they bought our tool. But this is a task which takes hours to do, and is something, because we can fetch data from discrete data sources, because we can either dynamically create documents or we can merge data into PDFs very easily, they were able to automate this process. They diverted development resources for 2 to 3 weeks, in lieu of doing the underwriting piece, and they built out a scheduled job that runs at the end or beginning of every month. I can't recall. It fetches all of the upcoming renewals from a data source, and then it runs through, builds up PDFs that say, here's your renewal information, customer XYZ, and emails them, right? Now those customer service reps both don't have to do that drudgery, and we get it done for really a tenth, I actually shouldn't say a number there, for like a fraction of the cost. So that to me is an automation. It has zero or little human interaction. There's not usually a lot of data entry. Build time is weeks and small scope, right? It's something that is a bite-sized piece of business value. These are hard to sniff out unless you are in the weeds on how that business unit operates. Like, how do you get there and realize someone's doing that? You know, like we talk a lot at our organization about challenging the status quo, or not keeping the status quo. And a lot of times, one of the things I've found in my role here is that we can oftentimes not see past we can't see why the thing we're doing now is bad. We just know this is why we do it. We do it this way because we have to, and we never ask the question like, can we make it better? So automated business processes here. This is where we take an existing process and we augment it in some way. So we've got a partner of ours who does a lot of work with SAP. So to compare and contrast application here is they have a need for to better handle master data management, as well as some approval tracking for SAP for purchase requesting that SAP doesn't give them. The answer for them isn't, and no one would ever do this, right? This is an extreme example. Try to rebuild SAP in Decisions. It would be, how do I leverage, what do the entry and exit points to SAP look like? How can I leverage Decisions to augment that? You can imagine it as a stream with like a hook, right? That starts and comes back in. I actually learned this recently, like what a billabong is. I don't know if anyone knows what a billabong is. Besides like the company, it's like rivers naturally like turn like this over time, and then eventually they will close up, and you'll have this weird you got this weird sort of closed off river thing. Anyways, I don't know. I'm talking about that right now. So what is the automated business process? It's intermittent user interaction. This isn't every day. I don't have 8-hour-a-day users. I don't have data entry and tasking in one Decisions view. There's a customer of ours, Miami Parking. They spent 2 to 3 months building and automating the city of Miami said that we have to residents get 50% off street parking. They then had to figure out how to automate the registration of that, and they used some phone apps called I'm not going to be able to think about it right now, so that a customer can like mark themselves as parked. But they had to submit their ID information, their residence information, and what they were doing is getting like 60 or 80,000 of these a year. And customer service reps, they figured take about 15 minutes to do each one. And there was like a 60% rejection rate because the address given was outside of the city bounds. So what they did is they hooked into a geofence database as well as the Postal Service API, or a geofence API, excuse me. Now a customer submits a request, they automatically validate the address, and then they send the address to a geofence API, and now they confirm, are you in the city or not? And the only thing they have to check is your license expired, and is it a commercial or a residential address? So you've both reduced 60% of the volume, and you've shortened the time from 15 minutes to like 2 minutes. And this one workflow, they calculated, is saving them like $60,000 a year by not having really a significant amount of time for their customer service reps, or at least a subset of those reps, doing this work. The reason this is an automated business process is thinking about this as a lot of tasking, but not a lot of data entry, right? Maybe comments, approval notes, but not a lot of like super in-depth forms. And then we're looking at applications. Tasking and data occur, 8-hour-a-day end users, high management need. This is an important one. It's not just users who use the tool, but I need managers of the process. Who's looking at the queues? Who's actually, like, I need a support unit, I need a support structure to support this, right? Because things will go wrong. I need to be able to manually move things around when they get into wrong states. Those of you that are using case entities, you'll have some awareness of this. These are end-to-end processes. Like, oftentimes it starts and ends in decisions. We make lots of calls to external systems, but the process starts, or it really begins in a significant way and ends inside of decisions. Though an application, to my point about Arizona Department of Transportation, can also be just a component as well. You'll find that these conceptual lines are very gray when you start to dial in. But I think broad brushstrokes, this is a helpful way to think about some of the business problems that we can help you solve. Any questions about the thinking here, the diagram? Yeah, I can't remember your name. I'm sorry, the guy behind you. I'm so sorry. Yeah, please.
Is this like a chronological path that customers take when they purchase decisions to go from small applications to large applications, or is this more of a suggestion to say you can handle all three categories in decisions, but you can actually start anywhere you want?
Yeah, this isn't chronological. If I had my way and I was in charge of your business, I would advise you to start and move, right? Because then you can have some failures along the way that aren't your big problem. But you come to us because you need to solve big problems. So you start oftentimes here in the top right-hand corner, and my goal is to try to convince you to drive down into the left-hand corner while also managing and maintaining that initial thing. And then eventually move back up to the top right-hand corner. So chronologically speaking, that would be my ideal process. Start with your hard problem, dive into small stuff to train up a really, a lot of times this is either built by our PS team, or at least completely, or in a large part, and then you can, while you're either post or in parallel, identify some of these options to train a team up on internally, so that now they can attack some really hard problems with a lot of real world experience.
So are you seeing real data that this approach is reducing the average 8-month time frame to production to something a lot lesser?
Not yet. No, we don't have any data on that. But that's a great question. Go ahead.
So with the example that you provided on the Miami parking, that being one of the automated business processes, is it longer in nature because of the portal aspect of it, or is it just the complexity, or what is adding in that additional time for those additional business processes?
What turns automation into an automated business process?
Yeah, like from the automation being a little bit shorter in nature, maybe a quicker hit versus something longer, like what is adding in that additional time?
It's often more sophisticated. This is usually the creation of like UI elements, an actual sort of user interface. It's not explicit, but the automation piece almost always has little, if any, UI interface.
And then in the parking example, did they leverage their own application and then that connected the decision to the back end, or did they use?
They built it in completely in Decisions.
Okay.
They have data stores that they pull data from, but they basically built a single view where before they had 3 to 5 different places to check at. So they both get rid of a bunch of stuff up front, and then for what you need to see, they bring everything together. So there was some queuing. So there's reports and dashboards to show a user what open things are. Some reports and dashboards to show you the things that have been completed on a time series of some, last week, last month, as well as the main process in this one main form where it sort of centralizes or brings all the information together. So, but this took 2 to 3 months for a single person to build, and they've done a few more things after that, but like and even them having built something simple, there's probably all sorts of very small things. Here, give you an example, having recently stopped running support, realized that as our volumes grow, and we're trying to create more sophisticated triages and say all right, we have customers that are escalated, so we need to prioritize them, and maybe we need to prioritize other customers in certain ways. That we had certain times where we were getting close to our SLA that we agreed to, and so what I built, I'm obviously a sophisticated user of the tool, so I don't want to I know how to use the tool really well. I spent 30 minutes and built a scheduled job that would pull the tickets out of the database, check the time since they were created, and see if they were close to 24 hours, right? And then build up a really dumb email and send it to the guy, Brian Thomas, that I put in charge of support. So that's just a super quick, easy win. I just need some alerts and notifications. Now, so anyways, that was just another example. Any other questions about this? So just looking at some of these ideas, right? So you all are coming to us with your initial use case. We're embedding ourselves in your application. We're creating a new application because of some legacy homebrew, piece. We're replacing an existing system. You want to do generic back office. You're replacing some terribly over-engineered SharePoint that you want to just get away from as fast as you can. You have a business rules engine or orchestration use case. So just a couple other ideas here. Doing any sort of ETL process, we handle this brilliantly, right? We have a customer of ours who reads 10 million database records from their asset management database, runs rules against them every night, and then saves them back into the Oracle DB that they read from. Just a scheduled job it runs. It takes a little bit of time to run, but any ETL, if I was in charge of making decisions successful, I would start asking everyone what are you using Excel for, and figure out how to replace it. We can add actions, notification behaviors, and intelligence to something built in Excel, incredibly easy. What are you using Excel for, and how can I help you? What are you using it for? Why, and how can I help you replace it? Anything that's heavy email use, if you're just using your inbox for a lot of correspondence, things get missed. Can we turn that into a very simplified workflow just to track things? I'll give you an example. Legal document review for us, it's a very simple workflow. Here's the document, I need it reviewed. We were doing that via email. It's 8 steps, right? I needed a queue and I needed tracking, so I can see the status of my requests, and then the people in charge of making sure legal documents get reviewed can have a view of open requests, right? I'm not going to go build some big, enormous system. I'm going to build a very simple process. And I'm going to provide visibility and tracking, and that's my only goal: visibility and tracking. To the MVP point from Mark earlier, you can iterate to your heart's content or discontent here. Dumb notifications. We've seen this before. It might not be that the notifications are dumb, but you can't target them in the second order way you want. So we use Salesforce, and so we have to create a relationship when a certain event occurs in Salesforce. We want your CS rep, we want your account manager, we want the support manager, and we want to check if you have an active professional services engagement. And if you do, we want to alert all of those people of this change, right? That data doesn't always live in Salesforce. So we can make a call to decisions and figure out who we want to talk to, and then send out the right event. We can also really create really data-rich emails with links in them, so that one of the nice things about a tool like ours is instead of providing someone text and having them go search, we can build links directly to those things just using our merge mapping editors. IT-owned CRUD. I was talking to, I think Chris, I was talking to you about this a moment ago. We have a bank of ours, we do business with Santander, and they have a team who owns 2 systems. Those systems don't share the IDs of related business objects. They have a table in a database somewhere whose only job is to map the ID from one thing to the other, and IT owns those change requests, right? Every time I need to get a new mapping or update my mappings, I have to submit an IT change request and go through that process, and eventually a DBA or someone writes an update query, and then they update it. What we did is we leveraged Decision's external entities. We didn't change where the data lived at. We didn't say, okay, we got to figure out, we're going to change where the data lives, and we're going to point all the systems at this data. We were just going to put a decisions report and some right-click actions in front of that. So we used external entities. We pointed it at that data source. We added some edit, add, delete behaviors to it, and now the business team can just go to a web page and manage that data themselves, right? It was a 1-week build, not that much value per, but they've got, when we worked with Santander on this, they said, yeah, we've probably got 60 to 70 of these types of relationships with business right now. The sum total of all those things is really meaningful, and it lets IT be way more flexible. And we have this idea we've started talking about, I can't remember who said it now, this like shadow IT, where we can stand up these like shadow IT teams. I just love that phrase. Data validation. Do you have multiple data sources that need to be kept in sync? Do you have Salesforce and HubSpot and some other system, all of which own customer data? Then let decisions run scheduled jobs that make calls between them, and reference data and possibly update data if it finds out anything is out of sync. What about any recurring tasks? This is big in compliance. I need to make sure every week, month, or quarter we do a certain thing. I don't have to I don't have to throw out or buy or throw out like a GRC tool. We have tasking. I can build really quick like scheduled jobs that launch a task that says for everyone in a particular group that says confirm your gift receipts this quarter or whatever, right? Like using tasking. And these things, oftentimes we spend a lot of time like building these really complicated forms. Oftentimes our forms can be so much simpler. Here's the thing I need you to do, confirm you've done it, give me a comment, and move on. It's the statefulness of the process that's meaningful, not like the actual like, here's all the history for last year, right? Or here's all the things you've done before. But I just need to get like a box checked. Of course, anything manual. If you guys, for those of you that are in our larger customers and are exploring RPA, I think RPA is a transitional technology. If there's an API, you should go to it. Don't ever pick RPA over the API. Sometimes, of course, there's not an API, and so RPA tools are awesome when there's not an API, but you'll get much more value. And then service orchestration. One of the things, probably the favorite way customers use this is to intelligently orchestrate systems. So they'll have ChargeBee doing recurring billing, and they'll have customer information in some CRM. And they need to send events to ChargeBee or ChargeBee events into CRM. And they want to apply business logic to those calls instead of just piping them together. We do a lot of work in concert with, for some of our bigger enterprise customers with MuleSoft, where we become the intelligent engine that works alongside MuleSoft. MuleSoft's job is to shoot the data through, and then we can either apply data rules at the end or at the beginning. You heard Gordon mention, or Bob mention, Koch Industries, and they've solved some really cool problems with the fact that different commodities trading platforms have different concepts of trade objects, but they have a centralized risk system that has one version of an object, and they needed to transform that object between them. And it was a really big barrier for them to bring on new trading operations or trading motions, because they would have to go through all of the setup work. And they built this, what they call Hive, this headless sort of decision engine that ingests, that they can onboard thing. They said it would take them about 3 to 4 months to onboard a new commodities trading. Like they were going to start trading soybeans, and they were to get that down to like 6 to 8 days because of the flexibility, how quickly that team can build and deploy or extend the existing process. So there's 3 main phases here: discovery, planning, and measuring success. There's 2 things to discovery. One of them I already talked about, which, like right now, discovery for me, as I see it, is a bit of there's this concept that we've been working with recently in our discussions with each other, which is push versus pull. We push is like a great short-term strategy, but we have to create a way to pull. And that means I can push something up a hill, but I'll get tired, but I can like have something pull me up a hill and I'll be able to walk up the hill forever. That was a terrible description. But the point is, like, I'm creating a process that feeds me ideas, or I'm incessantly badgering other business owners for the ideas. And discovery right now, I think it's got to be is like, hey, there's it's very much conversational. What are you struggling with? And then with some of this, hopefully with some of this thinking in place, you could say like, hey, like, maybe there's some quick wins here. What could we do to where are we like swivel chairing? Like where's manual effort at? And then can we look at that and can we fix that? And that's where that whole like where does what's manual? We're using Excel. There's also a suite of tools. This is something we're very interested in, called process mining or process discovery tools. And this is something that the analyst firms are hot on, and it looks like the whole and a lot of the industry is moving towards, which is there's 2 things that this does for you. Is one, we all think we know what our process looks like. I can say, what does your loan approval process looks like? And you say, oh, it moves through states A, B, C, D, E, right? But you don't know how long you may not know how long it takes or how the frequency that it moves back between states. And oftentimes, as we've explored this technology a bit, we've seen it can move between different states in ways that are unclear to us. We've applied these types of tools to our internal processes and been shocked with what we found. Like, we pointed this at our sales process in SalesForce. We've pointed this at our dev ticketing process that we've built. These tools can help inform you about what the process actually is. And it's CSV data, so it's ID, states, and dates at minimum, right? You feed this into one of these engines and it spits out these diagrams, and you can see how long was it in a state, how many times did it move between states, especially if you've built things in decisions that are very stateful or case oriented. You're moving between states in a way that's hidden from you, right? Like, you don't really know, you can't see it in a diagram. It can move between lots of different states all the time. And so if we have, there's tools like Concilius, there's a bunch of process mining, process discovery tools out there. But if we take this in hand with that diagram I just gave you, and the answer might not be like, let's assume this is a process in like Salesforce. This is our sales process, right? Move between lead, opportunity, XYZ. I'm not in sales, so that's about as much as I know about sales. Maybe all of our time is in a particular state, right? We don't have to throw Salesforce out to figure out why it's taking so much time in that state. We can go look at that, what's going on there, who's in charge of that, and we can say, what is it that's taking you all this time here? And now we have this framework, at least I think it's helpful, of automations and augmenting existing processes, and say, what automations can we apply to the behaviors your team has to do to move it to the next state here, to get you to take this time from 3 days to 3 hours or whatever, right? And really increase the volume here. And that's why I think that thinking is really important. And that's why my concern is that if we treat everything like a CRM, every problem becomes, well, this process doesn't work. It's supposed to take 3 days. It takes 13 days. And I'm going to throw the whole thing away and put together a project plan where I rebuild the whole sales process and decisions. And it may be that you want to do that. I mean, because ultimately when you do that, you get complete flexibility. You can change anything about it. But it might be that you need immediate time to value for your stakeholders, or for your, if it's for you, for your business. And so we can use tools like process mining, process discovery. We can extract the data, we can import them into these tools, review the process diagrams, and then isolate where we need to focus our efforts on. And then we can start having really targeted conversations with the stakeholders of those that are in charge of those pieces, and say, what is it that's taking you so long? And how can I use a tool like Decisions to help you with that? Can we automate some pieces of that? Are there delays in dealing, is it take you 2.5 days to get responses back, or how much of it's based on email? What are you currently tracking in Excel? All those sorts of questions. I'm gonna pause and take a sip of water. Are there any questions? Anyone? Yeah, go ahead, Dana.
Is there like plans to incorporate like process mining and process discovery within Decisions to make it easier? Because like a lot of that data is available, right? But you kind of have to know where it's at, or configure your workflows in a way to kind of capture or pull that data out. But
Yeah.
is there plans to simplify that for?
Yeah, we're looking really intently at some implementations like this. So we think we do, and you admit you saw some of this in some of the keynote. We think we do a really good job once you've been trained up in automating something. We don't tell you what to look at next, right? And so these types of tools hopefully can help us understand what to focus on. Where the problems are, and now we have a tool that we know how to. We've gone through training for. We have a team who's built to solve problems with that tool, which we'll see in the next step. And then this will tell us where to focus our efforts, instead of lots of Q&A based fact finding, or hiring a consultant to come through and then review our process end to end and tell us what's wrong with it, and then maybe advising us to throw the whole process away. So planning.
Can I ask one more question for you?
Oh yeah, please.
Is version 7 mindful of these facts or these possibilities that might come up in the future, and is it built in such a way that it can ingest these as features or for update libraries?
Yeah, these diagrams, these tools are agnostic of the system that generates them. It's really just like CSV data, and that can be exported from Decisions. We can all of our data lives in particular database tables, and we can join them together or write queries to pull the needed data out. So we can absolutely pass data from Decisions into tools like this, but you can pass any system that can give you appropriately formatted data into tools like this, and get a view, really like a 30,000 foot view of your process. So it's not decision specific at all.
Okay, so just the CSV is the interface.
Yeah, correct. Salonis, if you just search process mining, process discovery, you'll find there's a suite of these vendors out there, and they're doing a lot of cool stuff with helping you understand exactly where the bottlenecks in your process are. And then we can interact, we can point these tools at the things you've built in Decisions, or we can point these tools at the things you don't know to fix, and identify how to fix them using a tool like Decisions.
So when pointing these tools to what you built in Decisions, is there some work that needs to be done during the development phase to enable these sort of metrics
No.
to be collected? Or?
No. You just need to know where the data lives at and what this where the format of it is. Yeah. There's nothing bespoke about your implementation to allow you to point a tool like this in X-ray your process. Any other questions? Yeah, please.
Yeah, automation slide that we had earlier, does Decision have some like out-of-the-box automations already built? Like everybody does like expense report or
Sure.
onboarding and stuff like that.
We do have an app store that is in the studio of all of your installs. There's a small set, I won't say we have a lot, there's a small set of like generic back office processes that you can start with. We've got a lot of work to do there though, to really build that out. So that was process discovery, how tools like this can help us inform what to automate next. And then planning here is not so much how do I plan my next task, but how do I stand up a team whose purview is process improvement, and what does that look like? This is from Gartner. And what you see here is the life cycle of a center of excellence team. They analyze, deploy, and then maintain. Now, these teams probably don't exclusively use decisions. They treat decisions as a tool to use. Am I running over my time, by the way?
About 5 minutes till the next class starts.
Oh, am I really? Oh, well, centers of excellence teams, I'm happy to send all these slides out. Sorry, I didn't realize I was going so long. The other ones will be like way shorter. Center of excellence teams, like, is there a team who's been trained with decisions to solve the problems that you have? And how are they analyzing? We can see some of that in the process discovery thing we just talked about. And then what are they using to build those and solve those problems? Decisions will not be the solution to every business problem, that much is sure. But the question is, considering what I would hope is that you've got some deep knowledge of the tool and the fact that it's a very straight line for using it in terms of value to your business. Like, why are you not using decisions for this and making sure we've got good sort of ROI characteristics? And then last is measuring success. So how are you thinking about success? And this is, in my role as CS, what I found is, and I think this just comes from our heritage as like tech heads, is we're in love, and by virtue, you as our customers are in love with flexibility, with owning your destiny. Oh, I get there, I can build it myself, I can control it. I don't write the requirements and ship it off to the other team. So we haven't been thinking about like ROI for each at the project or process level. Like is this helping me from revenue, cost, or risk mitigation? What is this helping me solve? And then how do I make the case to the appropriate stakeholder that this hopefully small unit of work provides this value? Now, the smaller the unit of work, the harder it is to make that case in a way that's meaningful to the balance sheet. So what we've seen some customers do is actually automate the reporting of that. And this is probably the coolest example we've seen, which is this report in the background. And it's like super washed out, so I don't know that you can see it that well. But what you have is a decisions report. And there's a customer of ours in geomining in Australia. They built a ton of small automations. They've got like 40 to 50 of these things, and each one doesn't do a whole lot of work. It checks an FTP server for an uploaded file. If it finds that file, it downloads it to a particular location and executes a Python script to load it into a geospatial database, right? Now, this used to be a twice-a-day job for someone to do. So they've done that twice a day for the last 8 years. And so you just take 15 minutes per day from a highly paid person, and you can look at that like return on investment over time. So what they did is they built out a reporting mechanism to figure out, just to show to their stakeholders, hey, every time we run this flow, or the sum total of all of the value from this is X or Y. And you can look at it at the process level. Now, there's nothing in decisions that gives you this for free. You have to be intentional in terms of how to create this. But you can use decisions to report on the success of decisions in a way that's very transparent to your end users. And I just think that using decisions to report on success is really interesting. But you have to frame up and discuss your, you need to provide like ROI or sort of value evidence to the people that you're proposing your changes to, and really thinking about those in terms of revenue, cost, or risks, are the primary ways that we see customers thinking about the things that they build in decisions, and really trying to put real dollars to it and not just say flexibility or agility is what we care about. Sorry to rush out there at the end and to go really long. Thanks for your time.